Because it's all about perspective. It's all about your perspective. Sometimes we think that we don't have much to be grateful for. That's why you have to find a way to spend time with people who have less than you.
Amen. Amen. Preach it.
I mean, prison ministry is kind of cool in that sense, right?
Yes.
You go in and you minister to these people who are behind bars, and then you walk out free. You're like, hey, I like my freedom, yo. Yeah, I love being free. Right? I mean, you know, you spend some time with somebody who doesn't have a house, and then all of a sudden your house seems pretty nice. You see the cardboard they're living in, or, you know, right? And then all of a sudden, man, I got a pretty good house. I mean, it's got some problems. It leaks over here, and the plumbing is horrible, and floods every wintertime. But that's okay. At least I have a place to live. Right? If you spend time with people who have less, you're going to realize how much you have. That's why, spiritually speaking, you should always be working with people that are just freshly saved.
Amen.
Yes.
Because, man, it's amazing. You start talking to them about their problems, and then you're like, dang, I thought I had problems. I'm actually pretty good. Yeah, never mind, Pastor. Don't need your help. I'm pretty square, man. I don't have those problems, right? There's something about spending time with people who have less, right, or are further back behind you in their walk with God, that makes you really appreciate where you are. You start looking at your life like, wow, God, you have done some things in my life.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
You share your testimony about where you came from and what God brought you out of. All of a sudden you're like, man, I've come a long ways. Because it doesn't feel like that all the time. Right? It just doesn't feel like we're looking at our life, we're living our life, we're like, am I really changing? Is God really helping me? Well, you spend time or you reflect on where you were, what you come from, and you start to realize, wow, God is amazing. He's really changing me. Like, this is cool.
Amen.
We all have a basic problem of familiarity. Psychologists call it habituation. What it means is we get used to things, right? So the longer you're married, the more used to your spouse you get, right? The more familiar you get with your spouse. Your children, your boss, your job, right? The longer you spend time with it, it's called habituation. It's familiarity, right? You become familiar with it, and the more familiar with it, once you get used to it, you forget why it seemed so special in the first place.
Amen.
Like when you first got the job, you were like, oh, this is the best job ever. 5 years later, you're like, this is the worst job ever. Right? You forget why you were so attracted to it in the first place. Right? Marriage can be like that. Right? I mean, having children can be like that. When you have a child, it's so cute, you're crying, it's so amazing. You know, give it a year. You'd be like, I will shove you back in your mom. I mean, you're like, you're done with this, man. You're going back where you came from. Like that's all there is to it. Right? Because you get familiar with them, you get comfortable with them, and then in the process of that, you forget why it seems so special in the first place. You know, I was talking about those fMRIs where they do the brain scans the other day, and they're functional MRIs where it's while you're doing stuff. So what they did is they took one of these fMRIs, they did one of these, and they got the thing locked on the brain, and what they did is they showed somebody a picture of something, right? And they watched their brain just light up. They waited like 5 minutes. And then the person thought, they're going to show me a different picture, and so they showed them the same picture. And they did that 5 minutes in between each one, and 10 times they showed the same picture. You know, by the 10th time, the brain wasn't lighting up like it was the first time. It was like a little activity. It was like, meh. Just a little bit meh. Right? Just the first time it was really exciting. The brain got all excited. But then the 10th time it was like, all right, I've seen that before. Right? So that's what can happen. Sometimes we have to bring fresh eyes to familiar things. That's what turns on gratitude, is when you bring fresh eyes to familiar things. One woman said, instead of cursing the sink full of dishes, why not thank God for the food that made them dirty?
Amen.
Fresh eyes on familiar things. We become familiar with certain things and people, and then we just expect things from them, right? No, that's what they do. They're going to do that. They're going to take care of that. And then rather than being grateful for what they're taking care of, we just kind of expect it from them. Well, that's kind of what you do. Like, that's what you do. Why should I say thank you? That's what you do, right? We do that with our spouse. They cook a meal. Of course, that's what you do. And we lose our gratitude for it, right? Your husband goes to work. Well, that's what you do. You want me to thank you for doing what you're supposed to do? Right? We lose our gratitude, right? Because we're just expecting it from them. And once you start expecting things from people, you're not grateful for anything. Right? Once you have a sense of entitlement in your marriage, you're not grateful for anything your spouse gives to you. You forget the privilege that they're lending you. Like, I don't have to do anything for you. You do realize that, right? Nobody has to do anything for you.
Yeah. Amen.
Your spouse set a covenant, and that covenant does not involve everything you think it does. What our spouses lend us in marriage is a privilege. It's like, wow, you don't have to do this. This was not part of the marriage contract we signed. It's just extra. But see, when you come to expect it, you're entitled, and all of a sudden you're not grateful for it anymore. Just do your stuff, okay? Do what you're supposed to do. One person said, when you expect everything, it's hard to be grateful for anything. I recently discovered this with my wife. Last October, we had been married 22 years, and I really had taken my wife for granted. I mean, just to be honest with you. Familiarity, I mean, 22 years, it's a good amount of time. You become familiar with one another. You kind of each get your roles, you know. I do these things, she does those things. She had a car accident. She broke her pelvis in 7 places, ended up being in bed for 3 months, bedridden for 3 months. She couldn't, I would have to take her to the bathroom. I'd have to bathe her, you know, do everything for her, cook for her, you know. I had to do all the things she was doing. I had to take the kids to school. I mean, you know, for me, we just function like that. But then I had to start doing everything she was doing, and I was realizing, like, oh my gosh, my wife does a lot of stuff. Yeah. Like, I knew she's always busy. Like, she's never been a lazy woman, or I've never assumed she doesn't do anything all day. You know, nothing like that. I've always known she's busy, but whoa, I had no clue she was that busy. And what happened was it forced me to put fresh eyes on familiar things.
Yes.
It forced me to appreciate every little thing she did. Like, I never thought much about taking the kids to school. Like, I just never thought much about that till I had to do it myself. It was an hour and a half from the time I left my house, dropped them off, and got back home. Guess what? I got to do it again in the afternoon. That's 3 hours of my day gone. Just gone. Starting to give momentum in anything. Gone. Sorry, no momentum. Go pick up the kids. Laundry. Oh my gosh, these kids. I didn't know my kids use so much laundry. It's like they wear it for half an hour and put it in the dirty clothes. Like, this isn't dirty. Wear it 7 more times. That's right. Best dad ever. Yep. Dishes? I mean, cleaning the house? I mean, man, my kids have never worked so hard. I didn't do it all. I just made them do it all. I just didn't realize how much they had to do now. I digress. You never know how much weight the other person is really pulling for you. And because of that, until you have to pull it all yourself, right? That's what I didn't realize. I didn't realize how much weight my wife was pulling until I had to pull all her weight with my weight. And then I was like, fresh eyes, familiar things. All of a sudden, my gratitude went shot through the roof. Man, I got a good wife. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I don't even know how she does her stuff alone. Fresh eyes on familiar things. The air you breathe, gift from God.
Amen.
Amen.
Any bit of health you have, gift from God.
Yes.
Food you eat, every meal you have, gift from God. He can take your breath away right now, and you're gone. Everything's a gift. He controls it all. It's a gift from God. Your children. your
Amen.
abilities, your talents, your gifts, your job, your church, your relationships, your friends. You know, I experience this as a pastor. People just think that it's my job to just be the nicest guy ever. And so what they come to expect things like, you better bring it every service, pastor, or else we're not coming back. Dude, I got a life too, man. And my head's jacked up too. So, I mean, come on. Give me a break, you know? Right? People come to expect things from, is that your job? To just stop everything you're doing at 2 o'clock in the morning and counsel me off the ledge before I jump off and commit suicide? No, that's not my job. That's actually your job. Talk yourself off. I'm not answering the phone. But people come to expect things, right? It's your job. It's what you're supposed to do. And then they lose their sense of gratitude and the privilege that you lend them. James 1:17. Whatever is good and perfect comes down to us from God, our Father. If you do not believe that life is a gift, you will be a very ungrateful person.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an entitlement mentality, you will not be a grateful person. You will just live life without gratitude. Just everybody owes me everything. Your pride will be so high, your ego will be so high, you can't even soar with normal people. Because, I mean, after all, I'm the best, so everyone should bow down to me. I mean, everyone should do whatever I want them to because of who I am. I mean, I'm God's gift to humanity. 1 Corinthians 4:7. What do you have that God hasn't given you? And if all you have is from God, then why do you boast as though you have accomplished something on your own? That's a pretty basic question. Just name one thing you have that God hasn't given you. And if God gave it to you, why do you boast about it? All you have, everything you have received is a gift from God. You have to lift your eyes, the eyes of your gratitude, higher until you reach God. Don't stop at man. Let me explain what I mean. You know, how many of you, do they have here in Canada, like, say the end of the year, your company gives you like a dividend bonus. In other words, the company's made profit, and so they kind of
Profit
share it.
sharing.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
kind of
profit
share it with
sharing.
the employees, right? So, I mean, just imagine this for a minute. If your gratitude doesn't extend all the way up to God, watch what happens. The boss pulls you in 22nd of December. You're like, man, we did really good this year. And we're cutting you a check for $5,000. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your labor, for your dedication to the company. At first, you're like, dang, thank you. Like, this is going to make my Christmas, it's going to change everything. Thank you, right? And then, if you're just grateful to your boss for that, right? Then what happens is when you get home, you start pondering things. And then you start realizing, you know what? Actually, they kind of owed it to me because I'm the one that did all the sales that brought the profits. And so then you start thinking, like, is $5,000 enough? They should have changed it. Like, obviously, they should have given me $5,000, but maybe more. Like, I'm starting to think maybe more, right? If your gratitude stops at man, then what do you start doing? When they give you something, you start questioning their motives, right? You start asking yourself questions about, well, I wonder if they're giving me enough. You start questioning because you're stopping at man. But see, if your gratitude goes all the way up to God and you realize, no, my boss didn't give this to me. God gave it to me through my boss.
Amen.
I'm grateful to God. Thank you, sir. I appreciate this. And then you leave and you're going, thank you, Jesus, for using him to bless me like
Yes,
this.
amen.
Right? Now, there's no questioning God's motives because everything from God is a gift and it's mercy. It's unmerited favor. He doesn't owe us anything.
Amen.
Your boss might owe you something. Your company might owe you something. But you won't be grateful to them because your gratitude stops with them. But if you lift your eyes up higher and your gratitude goes higher, then you'll always have gratitude in your heart. When you feel grateful to others, you tend to seek reasons why they're generous. Right? You start to, why are they being so generous to me? Why are they being so nice to me? You start questioning those things. We also have to be willing to change our speech. So listen to this. Gratitude is a choice, and it also has a voice. You've got to remember that. Gratitude is a choice, and it also has a voice. Watch what happens to the grateful leper that Jesus is grateful for, but what he does compared to what the other ones did not do. One of them, when he saw he was healed, returned and with a loud voice, it has a voice, glorified God. The others may have thought gratitude, but they didn't express gratitude. Right? They may have been grateful in their heart, but it never went past their mouth. They never exited. They never expressed it. That is what Jesus is angry about. Right? He's not angry that they weren't grateful. He's angry that they didn't voice their gratitude. That they didn't come and give him glory for what he did in their lives. When our perspective is wrong, the way we speak about things will also be wrong. You know what they say? They say, these are they. They say, people who study people, say that it takes 4 to 5 positive statements to offset one negative statement. Mm-hmm. Right? So if I say something negative to somebody, right? If I say to somebody, you're ugly or whatever, that's a negative statement, right? Unless you like being ugly, then you might say that's positive. But if I say you're ugly, that's a negative statement. So in order to offset that or get back to zero, because as soon as I did that, I just dropped in that person's eyes and heart and mind. I got to say 4 or 5 statements, not just one. You're ugly, but you're nice. No, that doesn't do it. You've got to say 4 to 5 positive statements just to get back to zero. Just to offset that one negative statement. Can you imagine if you use that practice in your life? We're talking about changing our speech, right? If you use that practice in your life, you want to tell your children something that they're doing wrong, right? And you're about to just go off on them. And then you stop yourself and you say, you know what, son, I'm really proud of the way you're growing up. And you got your one. You're really maturing a lot. And I like how you keep your room semi-clean. Sometimes you got to struggle. The struggle is real. You're brushing your teeth once a week. That's cool, And you did not get an F on your last test. That's really good. But son, right? By the time you get to that negative statement, all of a sudden it's almost like, what was I going to say? Right? It's. Can you imagine the practice of just saying 4 or 5 positive statements before you say a negative one? To your spouse, to your children, to your boss, to people around you, your friends, right? The people we're familiar with, that we just don't worry about stuff like that. We just say, everything we say ends up being negative. Well, I don't need to say anything if it's good, because that's the way it should be. What if you made that a practice with each other in the church? Right? What if you were gonna try to tell somebody, you're kind of singing off key a little bit? If you were going to tell them that, but you had to come around first and say 4 or 5 positive things about what they're doing, right? Before you address that they're singing off key a little bit. Don't you think that their reception of that would be a little bit better? Right? If you even got around to it. Right? If you had to, anytime you're going to say something negative to your spouse, if you had to think of 4 or 5 positive things, you probably would forget the negative one by the time you said those 4 or 5 positive things. Your heart would just start beaming with gratitude as you're starting to think and express your gratitude towards your spouse or towards whoever you're familiar with. Where are the other 9? They're not where they need to be. They're not expressing their gratitude to God. And it was in the return. I want you to see what happens. Verse 18. Were there not any found among you who returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, arise, go your way, your faith has made you well. I want you to know one thing as I close this. Your faith has made you well. The word well means complete. That essentially what he's saying is, because of your faith, your expression of gratitude, you have completed the miracle in your life. Mm-hmm. The miracle was not complete until you glorified me. But now you are well, you are whole, you are complete. The other 9 did not get a complete miracle. They were not told they were made well. They were not told they are complete, that they are whole. They never got those words from Christ. But this man walked away with a complete 100% full circle miracle in his life. That's what every miracle has to be. God
Amen.
does it for you. Cry out to mercy. You walk away and try to do what God's doing. He heals you, and you return back and you express glory to God. You express your gratitude, and now it's complete. The miracle is complete. See, this one leper, just one, he thought about it correctly, he saw it correctly, and he spoke about it correctly. But the other 9 remain a mystery. And for whatever reason, they never expressed their gratitude. And Jesus says there's something not right about this. Something not right about this. I want you to bow your heads.